Hello everyone. Today we'll look into the musical achievements of Louis Armstrong, who was born the year 1901. He started out as a blues musician and soon developed his own style. He pioneered and inspired the entire American jazz music movement. He pioneered the swing rhythm, the solo improvisation style as the focal point, the scat singing style, and the freedom of expression of the soloist, as well as the other instrument of the jazz ensemble. I've chosen several classic blues by Armstrong so we can listen and observe his style change. Although he continued to perform until 1971, we will only focus on his most well-known blues from 1923 to 1931. The first recording we're going to listen to is the Dippermouth Blues, recorded in 1923, and Armstrong was playing in King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band. Armstrong was the second cornetist to band leader and prime the first cornetist, King Oliver. This blues piece is typical of its time and best described as dance hall music. So the tempo is kept quite strict and the beats are steady and loud to keep everyone in sync as multiple instruments are playing and improvising simultaneously, and this is known as collective improvisation. We can hear that King Oliver was playing the main melody and Armstrong was accompanying him somewhat in the background. And there was not too much creative space for Armstrong. To help you understand more about this type of music in this era, the Roaring 20s, I actually would like to just play another blue jazz band dance hall music from 1920 by Harry Redmond's Jazz Orchestra. So you listen to this after you listen to the Dippermouth Blues, okay? So I'm just going to do maybe 20 seconds of this other band. So you can hear that's the Bluebells of Scotland. So at that era, musician likes to take folk tunes, traditional ancient tune, and just play accompaniment on it. But they actually stick pretty strictly to that tune. There's not much improvisation on tempo. Like this Bluebells of Scotland, they stick very faithfully to the original tune tempo. All right, so as you listen to the Dippermouth Blues, you would actually hear this strict time dance music is actually a very sort of African influences, okay, by the sort of ongoing, non-stop, energetic African dances. The second blues we will listen to is Heebie-Jeebie, and this is a very significant blues because it marks the departure of Armstrong from King Oliver's band and set up his own band. This was recorded by Armstrong and his Hot Five band in 1926, 3 years later. When Armstrong, he is now the trumpeter, he's now the main soloist. He was no longer under Oliver. He's now the lead and focus of the music. Armstrong by now has started to pioneer a new form of jazz, which used the solo as a central element in jazz music, thus departing from the collective improvisation style of that time. He has also pioneered to add his voice, singing in scat style, and he also has some solo trumpet passages in the music. And he also started to develop his own very free, expressive style, not adhering to the original tune, but add on his own adornment, his own elements. So a departure from whatever folk tune they're trying to use. We can hear that in this Heebie-Jeebie. We can hear that Armstrong had started to play with a very distinctive swing style, the syncopation style. It is a strong rhythmic pulse that emphasized the offbeat. Although we also feel that Armstrong was still under the traditional constraints of dance hall music, you can still hear the strict tempo and limited lyrical expression. The beat, in this case, tapped by the banjo, was more subdued than in the Dippermouth Blues, but still quite strong. The recording of Heebie-Jeebies was so successful that Armstrong's band almost overnight became the most famous jazz band in America. His Hot 5 and Hot 7, they only did recording. They rarely, never, I think ever, play live. Okay. The third, the next set of blues that we'll listen to is a set of 3 blues recorded in the same period. This is now 1927. Potato Head Blues, Keyhole Blues, and Hotter Than That. So Armstrong and his Hot 7 band recorded this, 1927. Now, the first one, Potato Head Blues, is instrumental only. And we can hear that Armstrong's trumpet is now much more free and fluid than in Heebie-Jeebie. And then in Keyholes Blues and Hotter Than That, Armstrong's scat singing style has actually reached a new level of expressiveness and freedom, never heard before. In a true sense, Armstrong had gone back to his humble roots of singing when he started out as a vocal musician on the streets of New Orleans as a poor boy. His trumpet was playing and lingering in the high notes and often in a sliding manner, which became his signature style, kind of like trombone's tailgating in early jazz style. His swing style by now was quite developed. Now we move on to the next set of blues. 2 blues, the West End Blues and the Basin Street Blues, both recorded in 1928. Armstrong had stated that West End Blues was one of his favorite records. And critic and author, jazz critic, Gary Giddens wrote that this piece came to symbolize more than any other the ascendancy of a classical American music. John Chilton called this the beginning cadenza, a great moment in 20th century music. So West End is a very, very important jazz piece. It's a classic. It showcased all the, by now, very refined and perfected jazz element that Armstrong had developed. The swing style, the scat singing, the very expressive, free, fluid solo passages as the focal point. Armstrong also showcased his signature high-pitched trumpet technique when he held the high B flat for 4 bars, which is 12 seconds. This is the longest in recording history. It is no wonder that trumpeter Max Kaminsky, after hearing Armstrong live in 1929, remarked that Armstrong's brilliant high notes made him feel as if I had stared into the sun's eye. Now we move on to listen to Basin Street Blues. This is another quintessential example of Armstrong's scat singing in its most free and expressive form. The year now is 1928, 1 year later, okay? So Basin Street, it's very special. For me personally, I could hear several types of influences, including the classic symphony style, where several groups of instruments take turns singing different melodies in somewhat of a call and response manner, if you may. The celestra and the almost organ-like trumpet melodies. It feels like you're in a church. It feels like church music. And a polyphony texture as in a fugue, okay? And you can hear a carefree street performer style where a lyrical and fluid freestyle singing is accompanied by almost gypsy-like instrument. It seemed that Armstrong was trying to experiment with different styles to best express his emotions. Lastly, we'll listen to the very classic Lazy River Blues, which was recorded in 1931. By now, he has absolutely perfected his scat singing style in this recording. This recording also defines the paradigm of Armstrong's signature jazz style, meaning his expressive voice, his creative expressive singing, his technically perfect trumpet solos, his improvisation style, and a generally slower tempo, which allow him to be as expressive as he needed to be. Armstrong shaped and defined jazz music for all the generations of jazz musicians after him, like Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Frank Sinatra, even Bing Crosby, and of course, Dizzy Gillespie. So with that, I will end this lecture, and I encourage you to go and listen to these classic jazz pieces that I have mentioned. Okay, thank you.